all for coming. I'll just heap my gratitude for all of you appearing here. I think the whole notion behind tonight, as you've heard over and over again, is partnerships, because the way advocacy works is the more the merrier. And the idea is to start some conversations tonight across district boundaries. You have a shared interest in the kinds of kids that are sitting over there at the table. And, I have to admit, I really have fun doing my research because it does focus on how bright kids learn. And on your tables, you will see a sheet that looks something like this. I only had 4 copies for each table. The idea was to get you sharing with each other. If there are more than 4 of you at the table, you're going to have to look on, unless some of you have borrowed from other people's tables. But the title is Best Practices for High Ability Learners, and I'm going to do my best to try and skate through these. What I have done is there's a bit of a disclaimer at the top, and this is picking up on a theme that Marion mentioned too. It's the diversity within the group of individuals that within British Columbia carry the label gifted. My tendency is to use the phrase high ability learners because I think for classroom teachers there's a very blurred line. It's not about you are and you aren't. There are kids who need opportunities to work faster or deeper or differently who don't, quote unquote, make the cut. Some of you will have more than one child in your home. Some have or have not been designated gifted. And you'll look at the undesignated child and say, excuse me, regular curriculum doesn't fit there either. So I use the phrase high ability learners to sort of compartmentalize my interest in bright students without hitching myself to a traditional label that suggests a cutoff point. No matter how fuzzy you make the definition, the kids within that group are diverse. There are differences in personalities, there are differences in strengths. Again, for those of you who have more than one bright child in the home, you look at the 2 of them and wonder whether or not they really did come out of the same gene pool. So, you know, that diversity is in your house. Well, just imagine what happens when you get 25, 30 of them in a room. And sure, they share the label, but their learning needs are quite different. So the whole notion of best practice is a little scary when you've got this huge range of kids to try and say, here's what you need to do for all the kids in that label. It just doesn't make much sense. However, I'm going to pick up on a couple of pieces of research. One that I did and one that was done by Karen Rogers. And Lynn mentioned Karen has been to British Columbia. She's one of these great synthesizers. And she published an article. I've put the references for my points at the bottom of that sheet. And if any of you didn't get it and want it, just use one of those stickies and put it on my name tag tonight, and I'll email it to you. She came up with 5 lessons learned about best practices for bright kids when it comes to their education. And so what you'll find on the sheet, I'm just going to read these out and comment on them. But her approach was to go to the research literature and synthesize the research literature and say, here's what we know that bright kids need. First off, daily challenge in their specific areas of talent. Regular opportunities to be unique and to work, and I bracketed independently, in their areas of passion and talent. Now, the brackets are mine because this is a pet peeve of mine, and Connor knows all about it. Connor has been part of a group of students who've been in a research study that I'm doing about the conditions under which bright kids and their peers do and don't want to work in groups. See, they think it's funny too. Traditionally, the research literature has been pretty uniform in its suggestion that bright kids prefer to work alone. And True?
No.
Straight up. Yeah. We were talking about this earlier. Now, of course, these guys, you know, obviously they're social. They volunteered to be here tonight. But there are some bright kids who do want to work alone. But this suggestion that all bright kids want to work independently kind of scares me, because it suggests you can send them off to the library and not worry about them. And a lot of what the work that Marion was talking about, where we're looking at the kinds of contexts and the kinds of interactions, well, most powerful learning experiences arise through working with others who are as able or different thinking from you. That's how you broaden your smarts. That's the notions of incremental intelligence. Putting effort into learning is a lot easier when you're learning things you don't know than when you're reviewing what you've been reviewing for the past 3 years. So, to get back to the point, regular opportunities to be unique, absolutely. To work independently, not so much, but definitely in their areas of passion and talent. Agreed. Varied forms of subject-based and grade-based acceleration. These kids are capable of thinking and learning more quickly. Doesn't mean they always want to, but a lot of people think of acceleration and they think synonym for grade skipping. Not so. There are actually more than 18 different forms of acceleration, of increasing the pace. And I've put, Lynn mentioned the Nation to Seed report and Mirica Kroos. Well, I've put the reference for it at the bottom of this sheet with the link to it. You can download it for free. You want volume 2, and the article that I mentioned here is one of the chapters by Southern and Jones, and they give you definitions of the 18 different ways that kids can be accelerated. 17 of them don't involve grade skipping, or 16. So if your school has said no to grade skipping, say, I have another idea, I have another idea, I have another idea. Persistence. If you don't have it, learn it from your kids. Why? Why? You know that technique. Opportunities to socialize and to learn with likability peers. I mean, we were talking about this in the other room. It really means a lot to them to be around kids whose heads work like theirs do. Differentiate pace of learning, amount of review and practice, and organization of content presentation within subjects. Well, you know, we teach entire courses on that topic at the university. The word differentiate, if you're not familiar with it, you're going to be familiar with it. It's one of the big buzzwords in education right now for adjusting the curriculum to meet the needs of individual learners. Started out in gifted education in the 50s, but regular education has taken it on. So the good news is more people understand what it means. The bad news is it might not be happening any more than it was a while ago. So, differentiation, making adjustments that accommodate the differences between your bright kids and everybody else that the curriculum in British Columbia was designed to address. So, bumping it up. Here it says differentiate pace of learning in a more broad way. It's not just accelerating, because as you have probably noticed, some of your kids want to decelerate so they can go deep. Yeah, and sometimes the school isn't any more eager to let them do that than they are to let them accelerate. So this notion is a great bridge to the next set of best practices, which are slightly different. And they are from my research study. The second one, deferential differentiation, was, you know, academics, we sit around and make up words. Well, deferential differentiation is a term that I created that is all about letting the kids tell us, deferring to the students, and what it is that they say about their learning, which again is a theme that Marion mentioned. As a way to start, it's a starting point for planning, rather than letting the experts and the past research guide the planning process, which is what Karen Rogers was working from. Experts, past research. What I did was I went and I gave an enormously long survey. I have a habit of doing that, Connor. It wasn't just your group. And it was about their preferences for learning in the ways that are recommended for gifted kids. And lo and behold, all gifted kids don't like to learn in the same ways. Duh. So what I did come up with, though, were some themes across all of these 114 items that were on the survey, one of the themes that came up was flexible pacing. Sometimes they want to go slow and deep, sometimes they want to go fast. And sometimes they want to go fast to get it over with, other times they want to go fast because they can. So there are different ways and means, which is why you need to take a look at those 18 different ways and start to see which are the best match for the pacing needs for your son or daughter in a particular subject, in a particular class, with a particular group of classmates. This is all the different conditions that Marion was talking about. Second theme coming from the kids, learning with peers of similar abilities and interests. Now, one of the things that the literature hasn't spun out very well is this notion that I learned from the kids through this study, and that is, even if the kids aren't of similar ability, it'd be great if they were interested. So you don't have to be a mathaholic, but it'd be great if you really liked math, if you're working together with them. And in mixed ability classes, that's a happy medium. Choice, big theme, choice. Choice and control. Choice of topics, assignments, group members, and ways to differentiate their learning. It's always been a bit of an irony to me that we have these bright kids and we don't ask them how they want to learn. We act as if they don't know. And many of them have had plenty of experience, especially by the time they get to middle school, upper elementary and middle school. They can be quite articulate about how they'd like to learn. And so this notion of giving them some choice and a voice in the planning of their curriculum, one of the themes that I'm working on right now is, you know, teachers, you don't have to do it all. Just ask them. To be taught by educators who get them. And that's a biggie. Sometimes teachers don't quite know what to do with these kids. Never mind understand them. It's hard to know what to do if you don't understand them. And diverse classrooms full of diverse learners are quite challenging. And in my experience, talking to bright kids who are in classrooms where they may be the only one or one of a small group, they're quite aware of the challenges that their teacher is dealing with, trying to accommodate everybody. But sometimes it needs to be their turn. And that's a piece that if we listen to the kids in terms of letting them tell us where a good starting point would be for differentiating their curriculum, it can really simplify things, and it relieves the teacher of a lot of that responsibility. And finally, bright kids wanted to be encouraged to identify, study, and solve real problems using authentic materials and procedures. You cannot bluff these kids. You know, textbook learning. Would you go back to that if you had a choice? Or if somebody said, how would you like to go to a lab for a day and work alongside somebody who's studying a real problem with pollution, hazardous waste spills, math, a problem that's never been solved. To me, that sounds like torture. To them, it sounds like a gift. So finding ways to put the kids into real settings with real problems. It's challenging to manage, but it removes all the doubts about relevance and sort of knocks down the walls on the classroom. The final point I want to raise is the last one that was up in the very top section, which is sharing control. This, I think, a lot of the time, teachers feel the greatest burden for creating challenging learning experiences because they feel like they have to do it all. And if teachers can be encouraged and supported in their efforts to share control over that curriculum design process with these wonderful, wonderful, capable kids, when they're ready for it. You know, educators got training too on how to build curriculum. Kids can as well. Then the burden wouldn't be all on the teacher's desk. Thank you.
Before we ask Rosemary Berg